Hey, Donald, I was just thinking. Haven't heard anything about those rigged polls lately, about how they don't make any sense and they're all slanted. Got any thoughts on that? Trump vs. Hillary starts now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, that's right. We all want to be elected.
I feel like I look like Hillary with the
That's what I just said.
I know, it's like, ooh. Yes, I know. We all wish we could be as excited by lights as Chelsea
You gotta
is.
open your mouth and go like,
Welcome back, Chelsea. Welcome back,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Trump versus Hillary. Welcome back, everyone, except for Stephen Helmkamp. Apparently, he's already doing his victory lap, but maybe a little premature, but we'll talk about that. Anyway, I'm Christian Bladt, your moderator du jour, at Christian DMZ. To my left, for those watching on YouTube, you're right, at Drexel Heard. That's actually your birth name, at Drexel Heard.
It is.
Because you knew that Twitter, Instagram, it was all going to be all the... And as I said, Chelsea Galicia,
Hi.
a good hombre at Chelsea Galicia. Scott Moore at S-Man80. And of course, by the way, please make sure you follow at Trump Hillary 16. There'll be a lot going on in the next 7 days. I have a hunch, so keep in touch with us. And if you listen on iTunes, make sure you rate, you comment, you subscribe, all that stuff. And you can join us right now in our chat over on YouTube. And we always look after the show, too. So even if you don't watch live, comment over there.
and while you're doing all that, just make sure you get out and vote.
That's right.
Yes.
I mean, there are...
You can do all of that,
There
but
are-
make sure you
but
get
vote.
out
a
and
lot
vote.
of accounts for people who have already started voting. I was talking to a friend who voted in Indiana yesterday, and he said it took exactly as long as it does on Election Day, so I will never early vote again because
Here in California, I know a friend of mine was out there for 3 hours.
I've never waited on Election
I've
Day.
never waited
I haven't
in
either.
2008,
But I was out there, like, right when the
2012,
polls
a
opened.
couple of
Yeah.
the biggest elections I can think of. I
I
waited
walked
for
right
like
in.
20 minutes, maybe
know.
like from including driving there, it's like half an hour. But I understand that's a problem in a lot of places.
For sure.
And oh, by the way, if you're in Illinois, make sure you vote early and often. Don't forget to do both. So I don't know what we should talk about today. There's just such a quiet week, There wasn't really anything.
No.
Trump was really focused in a speech in Pennsylvania talking about Obamacare. Maybe we'll get to that. But oh look, the FBI decided that they needed to send an email to Congress, which ultimately, I feel like it didn't really say anything. It was just more like, hey, that thing we didn't close, it's still not closed, but I got some other stuff we're looking at. Yeah, it's like a really vague text you get from a friend who, you kind of lost track of at the bar. And they're like, yeah, I'll catch up with you in 5 minutes. And you're like, where'd you go? Like at the end of the next day. And so he's just checking in with us. He just wants us to know. Comey's just like, hey guys, yeah. No, I feel like, maybe he got leveraged. Maybe Steve Bannon was like, you're going to send an email that says something. And he's like, well, I'll send an email. It's not going to say anything. So we'll start with Drexel. Your thoughts when you heard that this email had been sent and you actually got to read it, and your thoughts on the few days since.
So the moment I found out, I was at work, and AP Breaking Mobile came up, and literally I'm one of those people that I'm in a room, and if I suck the oxygen out, the oxygen is out. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this cannot be happening right now. So then I was very quiet for a good solid hour. Everybody in
you're never quiet.
All my coworkers
what's
are
going on?
like, what is happening? The entire time I'm like doing a little bit of research. I'm reading the feeds. I'm figuring out the news. I'm looking at what's happening. And then
It's a good thing we don't name your employer here because they're going to be like,
Right.
what have we been paying you
well,
to do?
no, I was off-site doing all this, and so like I was working with a vendor.
Oh, so you were doing it on a home server?
Oh
not
yes,
your work server?
yes. I was not on my work phone. I was
Of
on
course
my
he
own phone, my
was,
personal phone. But I was like, okay, this can't be happening. So then after about an hour and a half later, as I started to read more of what was happening, I was like, oh, that's it? Okay, fine, whatever. So like, and I talked about this on my last show, which I do political culture right before this show, and I said the James Comey paragraphs, paragraph, when we write paragraphs in school, they're supposed to be at least like 5 sentences. His were like 2-sentence paragraphs. There were 3 of them, and the letterhead and how many people that he sent his letter to was longer than what he wrote below.
Yeah,
And
it was
so,
like book reports that I would write in
Yes.
5th
right,
grade.
with
a lot
big,
of spaces.
big spaces, yeah.
yeah.
And so so I'm looking at all this stuff, and I side with the White House in terms of how they feel about James Comey. I don't think that James Comey. I think that he was put in a tough position of saying, "Oh well, if I don't," he's like, "I do it now, take the hit later," but I think it's the right thing to do. And I thought it was in the moment the wrong thing to do, but I also see it from his side where I'm like, okay, James Comey, I see what you tried to do. If it had come out after that this exact X, Y, and Z was going to happen after, it would have caused much more of a problem and probably not invalidated, but probably would have questioned some people if Hillary Clinton wins next week. So I think that would have been a little bit tougher transition for Hillary Clinton. Instead of focusing on her transition, she now has to focus on the FBI, and I think getting it out early allows her to focus on transition after election.
Curious. Is that what you thought when you heard about all of this, or was it just?
Well, I started to look at like really what's going on, and then I got really interested when I saw that there was no search warrant at the time that this announcement was made.
Well, that wasn't until 2 days later, wasn't it?
Yeah. So there's no search warrant, so they haven't even seen anything. They don't even know, is this duplicate emails they've already seen? They don't know.
They don't know what they're looking at, but they thought it was important to say that they are looking.
And so it just was like, this is really ridiculous. And I don't want to be like a Hillary apologizer or what, but I just, that's like, I'm trying to think of a good lawyer analogy, but there's like, you haven't even looked at it. They haven't even seen it. It's not that they haven't just released it to the public, what those emails were. They don't even know what's in them. It could very well be nothing or something that they've already seen. So it's a whole lot of
I came up with a
hype
bad legal analogy that probably is not as complex as anything, but it's sort of like, okay, so we're investigating that fire that happened, and this house we're looking in, there's matches in there. So clearly,
That's
we're
a
not
good
saying
one.
anything. So it's like
Actually-
it's the first house they looked at, and they're like, well, there's matches here. So, we don't know. We just want you to know there are matches.
But
That's
something tells me
actually
that
pretty
the FBI did read those emails.
Well, they were supposed to.
That's what I'm saying. Without the
Right.
search warrant, so anything
Right.
after that is obviously going to be inadmissible. Whatever. There's
They're
going to be
only
legal.
supposed to be looking for weenies.
Right.
Well, and that's how it all comes back around. Remember when we did the
Yes.
episode about an Oscar Mayer wiener? I was like,
Yes.
well, what does this have to do with the election? Apparently everything.
But did they have a search?
Everything.
But here's what was confusing. Did they have a search warrant? Not for Huma Abedin or for Hillary Clinton, but did they have a search warrant for Anthony Weiner?
Yes.
Yes, I believe they did because it was a separate
That's the only way
investigation.
that they
That's
could
right.
get
And that's how
So
it
then
got.
that's why I'm saying when they said they didn't have a search warrant, what did they not have a search warrant for? Is the
To
question.
look at for anything that's related to Hillary.
Right, and the Huma emails and
So they
everything.
should
Only
only be
literally
looking-
looking for dick pics. That's all
Yes.
that they were allowed to
Right.
look for.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm
his,
saying. Like,
I'm
his
almost serious.
no, it is, and it was his emails.
Okay.
It was completely
But
separate.
then in the process of
then they found those. That's why.
discovery or the
Well, that's what
investigation,
they-
you come across something that's
So
interesting.
then what do you do? How does that work?
So
from a
that's
legal
like, let's
standpoint?
go back to my bad metaphor. If when you're in that house that has matches, you realize, oh wow, there's 5 kids chained in the basement. Oh, but we didn't have a warrant for that. So you obviously can do
Well,
something about it if you come
Well, those
across
are
it.
exigent circumstances, and okay,
And
but
I
there's
think
nothing
that's
like
what
that.
they would say.
There was nothing like that. There's not like an immediate, if they didn't find these emails and the content of these emails now, that there was going to be some irreparable harm. So that's really
Yeah, I would have had to see another picture of Anthony Weiner with his shirt off.
Right. But then Huma Abedin said, "I don't even know how my emails got on this
right,
computer."
that's what she was saying.
Well,
yeah.
apparently she was forwarding emails to herself to make them easier for her to print because she couldn't print them off the State Department email that she had, so she would email them to another personal account. What are we laughing at?
No,
Drexel go to work.
Keith says hashtag Drexel go to work.
On the way.
But I know. I was going to say a couple things on that, and that I've actually done that myself. I forwarded things from one email account to another
I've
because I'm
done
trying
that, yeah.
to print them, or I'm on another, whatever. But there were two things, and like you were saying, Drexel, is basically Obama's kind of in a tough position because he appointed Comey, and he also doesn't want to be put in a situation to where you end up getting a special prosecutor involved and you take that control away. I think what Comey did though was even though he was damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, it would still put him in a really bad situation because all the people he sent it to were the Republican congressional members. It was very vague. It doesn't help her, and I know we were talking about this on Twitter, Drexel, with Joe Walsh, who's the crazy conservative even when he says that this was unfair to Hillary, you know.
And Janine Pirro.
Yeah.
Yes, and
I
Janine
s-
Pirro also had a very, when they even say this is unfair to her to do this vague kind of very sketchy 11 days before, we don't know if there's anything there, we don't know who it is, where it's from, and it just raises enough doubts to people that might be concerned about voting for her. It's not going to affect anybody that's a diehard Democrat or people that are already in our corner. It's going to affect maybe a very small, tiny group of maybe some Republican women voters that were thinking of voting
No,
for
but
her.
actually, to that point,
But I don't think it's changed
Chelsea,
much.
obviously, I don't know that there's really anything that would ever get you to vote for Donald Trump. But as someone who was sort of dragged towards Hillary,
Right.
does this sort of thing make you at least stop and think again, like, oh, maybe I should vote for, another party candidate or just write in Bernie,
Not this.
Not this.
issue.
Okay.
Doesn't
But-
do it.
So you feel confident, just as confident as you did a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, with the last time you were here on the show.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just really, and I think I'm pretty similar to everybody that's been polled
Yes.
about the issue.
Yeah.
That it
Yes.
hasn't really changed their
it
mind.
hasn't, and it's not a big enough deal. But I think there might be a few people out there that might have been. It just raises that concern. It doesn't help her. Let's just
Right.
It doesn't help her. But I think there might be a few people that, especially Republicans, that might have been wanting to vote for her, that might be more reluctant, not just because of that, but started thinking, oh, it's the scandal, it's all these things, and it just makes them think
Well,
about that
one of the-
negative.
Everybody's like, well, we're going to go into an election with an investigation, a legal investigation of one of the candidates. No, both of the candidates.
Right.
Because Trump's got a sexual assault.
Which nobody's talking
a
about.
child rape pending, Trump
Racketeering,
University. So neither one of them is walking in this
Right.
legally scot-free.
Right, and one of the things that I always get really upset about, and I think I've said this before on the show, is that when we start talking about Hillary Clinton's emails, if you actually look at Hillary Clinton, like when she sends
Right.
an email, and part of what's got jumbled up in this whole, and we all watch politics in from a, like, we're very invested in the process, and we have our opinions about the policy about it. And nobody's paying attention to the process. Nobody understands the process of it. And I think that's part of what people are seeing through this election, is that they don't understand the behind the scenes workings.
Right.
So if you look at an email from John Podesta, or if you're looking at an email from Jennifer Palmieri or Brian Fallon or Robbie Mook, any of these guys, you're seeing how campaigns actually work. The dirty. Even Bernie Sanders said in the past couple of weeks, listen, I can 100% tell you that if I look at Jeff Weaver's emails, the stuff that he probably said about Hillary Clinton's campaign, that he probably said about John Podesta, probably would not rival would rival what we saw in WikiLeaks in terms of John Podesta's emails. And so people are starting to see, like, oh man, Hillary Clinton's surrounding herself with all these different types of people. No, they're campaign operatives. Their job is to protect the candidate. Now, it goes back to, I was reading what happened on Friday. One of the things that happened on Friday is that the Clinton campaign didn't have any Wi-Fi in the air. The LA Times reporter wrote an article who was on the plane at the time about the moments that happened after the fact.
Right.
And the campaign spent at least a good half hour trying to figure out when they were going to tell Hillary Clinton. So it's about when do you tell the candidate? How
Yes.
much do you tell the candidate? And how much does Hillary Clinton know? I bet sometimes she's looking at these emails going, I can't believe you sent that, Jennifer Palmieri, about the Catholics. You know what I mean? Like that Catholic email that Jennifer Palmieri, I bet Hillary Clinton didn't have a clue. And then they made it seem like, Hillary Clinton's against the Catholics, and you
Right.
saw that at the Al Franken dinner when Donald Trump brought it up. So you're like, how much does Hillary Clinton know? It's almost like, how has the White House not been touched? And the Hillary Clinton campaign has been very good about not throwing Barack Obama administration under the bus. When it comes to Libya, when it comes to Benghazi, she hasn't thrown a single Republican under the bus. She hasn't said a single word about how Republicans cut funding for embassies. She hasn't said a word.
Why
in terms
not?
Of, that's what I'm saying. In terms of
Right.
the
Why not?
White House, she hasn't said a word about. Listen, this was the policy of the defense secretary.
Well, and
this
I think
is the policy
she
of
couldn't
NSA.
with Obama and with the
And
administration.
what was happening?
Yeah.
I'm saying that.
To some extent, there's the professional courtesy,
Right.
and then
Absolutely.
also this administration is doing a lot to help her, which
Right.
we haven't necessarily seen. in
But
some
why
recent
should? But they shouldn't have to
administrations.
do all of this work if the blame had not shifted to Hillary Clinton on every
Yes,
policy problem that
exactly.
came out of the Obama administration. And you're like, so you blame Hillary, and then the White House says nothing, and
Yeah.
then people go, oh, it was all Hillary Clinton's fault. So you basically think that the state secretary has everything to do with embassy security. I don't know, whole policies in terms of no-fly zones, all this stuff. She's just one person, a wheel of
I mean, if
cause
she
out
gets
of
all that
of
blame,
that.
then she should probably just get all the credit,
credit.
for Bin Laden.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Basically.
because it's
Right,
like, look,
exactly.
we did all this
Right.
bad stuff. So it's like, oh, we're
Yeah.
gonna
They
have
like to
to
pick
give you
and
the
choose.
Yeah.
exactly.
But says Trump has dictated nothing more than his company. Oh yeah, and I'm
Vic Rattlehead, thank
I'm,
you.
I'm kind of happy to see that people are boycotting not only Trump's brands but also Ivanka's.
Ivanka.
Yeah,
she's
and
taking
I
a
think
hit.
Ivanka's like, dude, I'm not even gonna vote for you. Like why is this?
Which is why I think she came out a couple weeks ago or last week and said that her dad's going to accept whatever result comes out of next week, because I don't think she wants it to drag on, because it will affect the businesses.
It's going to be very negative if that does drag on, and it is a big concern.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's going to ever make a comeback. I mean, brand wise.
Brand wise, I think it'd probably be all right. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about in terms of, from what you hear, it seems like there have been a couple of bankruptcies, and there have been a lot of things along the way. If the brand is good, if the Trump Tower is a good place to have, it's in a good location, so you still might want to have your office there, things like that.
Well,
and if the casinos, I know that one of them closed, but I'll tell you, if it's not helping the brand,
actually just closed, 3,000 people
Yes.
were let go.
I think that I don't think that was as a direct result of the campaign. I think that anybody who's been to Atlantic City might be surprised that Atlantic City is still there. But I think that if the name is a problem, I think that everything will be called something else. It wouldn't be a Trump Tower. They'll be like, we'll come up with something else.
I don't think he would ever do that, though.
No, I know,
because
but
of his ego. But I don't think, like you said, I think that the people that are supporting him are going to support him and go support his brands, and then
Right.
people that are more moderate don't really care will go.
Or maybe they'll change the name to Ivanka Trump Tower, because it's like it's not him.
Yeah.
It's her tower.
And I just want to kind of just
Olivia,
address.
I don't know if Stephen the Trump supporter got scared and didn't show up.
No, he was
No, he
here.
did
He
not.
was here last week,
Right.
and
But I
he's actually he's working. He's making his bank account great again. Working
Make it
up in
right.
Santa
He's trying
Barbara.
to hoard all that money
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
For Hillary Clinton to take
before
away
it
from
gets
us.
high
taxed.
taxes.
It's not a bad idea. The markets aren't doing very well.
No, they're
when
not.
it
I mean,
looks-
did you see what happened in the stock market on Friday
Yes.
when that AP break, and then it was like
Right.
it like plummeted. But I just want to address
they don't
the
like
fact.
any kind of instability.
Right, I just want to address something that somebody said about balance on this panel, because I get the same thing on political culture all the time. And first of all, we're in Los Angeles. The idea of Republican or super conservative people running around is very scarce. But also, this isn't this isn't like I can be very, once Hillary Clinton hopefully gets president, I can be very critical of the Clinton administration, just like I am very critical of an Obama administration when it comes to certain things.
probably not more critical.
Not more critical
Right,
than
you'll
Chelsea.
be- Right. yeah, there
you go.
However, we are, I think, collectively against Donald Trump, the person, not the party.
Right.
I think that the Republican Party as a party, I was.
Well, I don't like their platform.
I don't like their platform either,
I don't like
but
the platform.
there's a
However,
difference
and I was
between
talking
them
about
and
Paul
him.
Ryan earlier today. I said I think Paul Ryan is one of the smartest Republican congressmen that they have, and I think that Paul Ryan, if you can, I said this last about the
Right.
trifecta, where you talk about Paul Ryan, you've got Chuck Schumer, and you got Hillary Clinton. That is the balance that you want in Washington. You want that Paul Ryan mind
You
to
want
say,
those policy
I want that conservative, you want that policy mind in Paul Ryan. So I think it's less about balance of Hillary versus Donald Trump and more about Democrats versus the destruction that is Donald Trump
And other Republicans, because there are a
and
lot
other
of never
Republicans,
Trump Republicans that don't want anything to do with him either.
Right, and they by no means are people who would support Hillary Clinton
But
under any
then-
circumstances, but they really don't want
But
Trump.
then I'm saying that the support for Gary Johnson and Jill Stein is down, at least in the state of California. I don't know if that's true.
Well, actually, Donald
nationwide.
Trump has the lowest right now of any Republican candidate in California's history, if it holds true next week.
But
And that's encouraging a lot of my friends who lean Republican to vote for
Hillary Clinton.
Gary Johnson,
Gary Johnson,
because they think that their vote is safe and they want to send a message.
Right. Well, in speaking in terms of balance, it is something we've talked about, that the pool for which we pull from, Stephen, even though some people think he's a Trump guy, he said many times on the show he's not a Trump supporter.
Except
he was the
I
close.
think
No,
he
I
is
think-
a
I think
closet.
Trump. I think when he was at Trump Tower, it all seated up to
yeah,
his
it's
head.
like
Yeah.
he breathed in
I
that
think
air.
early on he
That
was.
trumpet.
I think early on he was more disposed to it because of how much he doesn't like Hillary. I don't think he really likes Hillary much more. I do think he likes Trump less. who knows? He's not.
But he's
here.
also a one-issue
But-
voter when it comes to
Right.
economics.
And, But to my point, he was the most
No.
outspoken Trump supporter we could get who would actually come on the
Yeah.
show. So I certainly know people. I know people that may or
same.
may not be involved in AfterBuzz that just did not want to come on camera. So
Scott Billings, I like what you're saying. Paul Ryan has led the obstructionist Congress. Do we want that to continue? Heck no, I'm with you.
But I also think that Paul Ryan was put in a tough position with that Tea Party faction
Right.
that gave him the speakership.
It was the same thing with John Boehner. Had
Right.
that same problem.
And whereas Paul Ryan's like, here's the thing. I don't think Paul Ryan would have said he voted for Donald Trump today if he was not up for re-election right now.
I think that's actually a great point.
Yes.
Like,
No,
he just
of
would not have
course
said
it
anything.
is.
He
Of
didn't have
course.
to. Why? He's been talking about that the whole
Right.
time, and now he's seeing some internal numbers that are saying, ooh, if you don't talk about little Donald Trump more, that first district might not work out too well for you.
To once again, Vic Rattlehead, to his point that Paul Ryan is with her, he's an establishment shill. I mean, I think that's certainly one thing that the Trump campaign has done is certainly reinforce that notion that Paul Ryan, a guy that Bill Kristol was hoping was going to run for president in 2012, amongst other people, and I bet Bill Kristol would probably vote for him again. But there are a lot of people they've sold their stock in Paul Ryan. But I think that there's all caps there in the booth. That makes me scared. Sorry, they're just there in the chat. But look, I think that I think there's something to be said for divided government. But at the same
Not that
time,
divided.
when it always turns into something passes in the Senate and then the House always if the House always doesn't fund it or however it all breaks down, or if it's like always gets vetoed, at some point you're just like, oh, just do something. Just maybe vote on a couple of things that you actually agree on. Just get a couple things in there, and then you can go, no, never.
And I know we're going to talk about the polls here in a little bit, but there was
Yes.
something that was brought up today just in terms of Florida and the numbers and the levels of African American voters this election go around. And people bring up the point of, and I know somebody just did, about how Hillary Clinton has somehow hurt the Democratic Party. I don't think that that's the case. I think that essentially, Barack Obama is a lot more conservative than Hillary Clinton on most issues down the ballot.
Really?
I've always said that Hillary Clinton was to the left of Obama, that Barack Obama was to the right of Hillary
On what
Clinton.
issues?
On foreign policy. I think that Barack Obama was a lot more hawkish than Hillary Clinton. I think that Hillary Clinton was probably in there being like, listen, I'm a woman in this room full of men.
What the heck is going on in Yemen? What is this? Nobody's talking about Yemen. But anyways, we should at some point.
If
but-
you look at the way that he's conducted his drone policy, if you look at how he's kind of stuck the book to Latinos in terms of rounding them up and out, I
Yes,
think if
deporter-in-chief,
you
for
I think that there are certain issues that Hillary Clinton probably would have been like, let's take a look at this a little bit
well,
differently.
speaking of that language, that statement, or I don't even know if you can really call
Dakota
it a
Access
statement.
Statement.
Exactly, thank you, which said, we're going to look and think and think.
Right,
and
but I think
said
that's the position.
nothing.
It was like a
but
two-sentence
but if
thing,
you
too.
notice
It was
that
it
she
was not
was
much.
the one of the only, other than Bernie Sanders, she was the only Democrat that said anything. No other congressman, no other senator, nobody from the White House, nobody has said anything from the Democratic Party, and Republicans certainly aren't going to say anything.
Right.
But I think that for Hillary Clinton even to say something, said that okay, this is on my radar, but I'm not going to say anything until after the election. And it goes back to what I said. I think the Obama administration halted that process until after this election.
So you think that she really thinks she's going to side with the
No, I think
company, or you think she's going to?
I don't think it's going to matter because it won't even. I think this pipeline is going to be built before she even.
No,
gets
I don't think
inaugurated.
so. Are you kidding
It's
me?
not
A
gonna be that
million
quick.
people
No,
checked
I
in
meant-
yesterday.
Yeah,
to
I was
help.
one of them.
Yay,
what I'm saying,
good
what
job.
I'm saying,
Yay.
what I'm saying is
I was
that
so confused by that. I had to read about it. I did read about it eventually, but I'm like, what
My
is
husband
everybody
checked
doing
in, a couple
what is
other people
everybody
that I
doing in
mentioned.
South
That would be
Dakota?
awesome.
What-
Like we should move, like you have like another Burning Man, like at Standing Rock, like
Right.
something where we set up shop and just hang and fight until
But
this
sorry, to
gets
your
handled.
But
point,
my point is that if you saw how Keystone went down, the Obama administration was very adamant about Keystone saying, "Oh no, we're not going to do it at all." This was a time where they said, "Okay, we're going to halt and we're going to reevaluate." That to me signals either Barack Obama is going to trying to punt it off to Hillary Clinton, and then let her deal with it, or this pipeline is going to go through with or without that. It's almost like
It's not going to happen. I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the option
But you're
is
right,
either
yes.
punt it
I
or
think
allow it to happen.
He's punting it is what I would think, and doesn't want to get, it's the same thing. Doesn't want to get involved with it.
And somehow the
letting
Republican
someone
governor
deal
of
with
North Dakota, like people forget like how this whole thing
Right.
went down.
People forget all
in
that
Standing
stuff.
Rock is that you got a Republican governor. They were
Yes.
trying to appease all the white voters in North Dakota, and now they've stuck it
very
to all the
few
Native
people that live
Americans.
there.
And, right, and then I was like, where is North Dakota? And then right, and like nobody thinks about North Dakota. And then you got,
49th
and now you've got this
population.
pipeline. And there's certainly the Republican governor is certainly not going to be thinking about renewable energy in North Dakota and how best to serve the people of North Dakota. So where does the administration stand on that? Because the State Department had to have let that pipeline go through somehow.
this is going to be a big issue. I don't think this is going anywhere.
it's not
This is
going
not
away.
going to go quietly into the
No,
night
They've
it's
at
been
all.
working on it since April, so I think that.
Yeah.
But
I don't think
it's-
it'll go quietly.
The
but-
momentum
Right,
is just gaining.
Exactly.
And I don't know.
So
somebody
there
might-
were a couple comments in the
Dot.
chat.
Oh,
That,
no, where did
that's
it
all right.
go?
Well, that's okay because I wrote them
it's
down. First of all, great name, Monolith Enigma. Very nice.
I like the Drink Drunk Done name up there.
I saw that. Yeah, but
that might
Monolith
be us
Enigma.
next week.
Well, we'll talk about that. Monolith Enigma said Hillary is for Hillary, not the right or the left, which is could be a good thing, really, if she's
I
not
could say
for
that
one or
about
the other.
Trump. Very.
What I also enjoyed, 313 Yolanda. Can't wait for the election to be over. I have to agree with that.
I do too.
And we are only a week away, and at the end of the show, we'll talk about next week how it'll be exciting. So we should definitely spend some time on some of the polling, which obviously it always varies if you look at the different polls, and that's why we always talk about the Real Clear Politics average. One poll that last week I didn't give too much credence to was that ABC News
Right.
poll that had Hillary up by 11 or
12,
12,
yeah.
you're right. And now she's only up by 1. So is that just the course correction of a poll that was way out there and they're like, all right, let's be a little bit more realistic? Or did she really drop 11 points? I know it's one poll, but when you look at the average, well, now she's leading by 2.2. And that's definitely, much more in the margin of error. That LA Times USC tracking poll, which always seems to show Trump up for some reason.
It's always been leaning Republican the entire
and
cycle.
he's up by 4 in that
Yeah.
one. So that's why the average is useful because it takes so many of them.
Well-
Of course, if a couple of those polls are really bad, it doesn't really help the average. But it's
Right.
interesting to look at. Chelsea, your
One
thoughts?
of the polls that I thought was interesting that the only real effect that this latest email thing has had has been to diminish the enthusiasm of Hillary supporters.
Right.
And so that's where these numbers may be looking different, although I don't know if on election day really the numbers
I
are-
saw that in
Be different.
a couple of Trump's must-win states that it seems to have helped him in Florida and Ohio.
Although there was a new poll that just came out.
What was
in
this one?
Florida
Yeah, I know you were
today.
talking about this. What was
and
this one?
again, this could be looked at definitely as an outlier because it has Hillary up by 8 with the early voting, and something crazy about a quarter of Republican voters were supporting her. But I do have some relatives that are there that are Republicans that are voting for her. But it does sound more like an outlier. But that's the problem is you get a lot of noise. You have so much back and forth. Definitely Trump's numbers, and that was part of the thing too, where they're already closing before this FBI news came out, and a lot of polls are saying yes, this was already happening as the lead-up was happening. But you do have to look in the fact that 27 million people have already voted, and the numbers for Hillary in Nevada look amazing. Her numbers are higher than 2012 for the Democrats, especially in Washoe County where Reno is. The numbers are much higher. Colorado still looks very good for the Democrats.
Which anyone who's ever been to Reno, by the way, or in the surrounding area, that wouldn't really seem like strong Democratic.
No, it's a
territory.
Republican
Yeah.
area, and the fact the numbers are up for the Democrats, so it looks pretty good for her still. And I still feel like the Electoral College math is still in her favor, regardless.
Well, as we were saying before the air, I always go to
Yeah.
Larry Sabato at the
Right.
Center for Politics at University of Virginia, and she still has a healthy Electoral College margin. So, I think it's something we were talking with Jeff before the show outside of the studio is these voters who don't want to tell a pollster that they're voting for Trump, which obviously
or
always
now
happens.
want to tell them that they're voting for Hillary.
They might not want to tell you
Right.
anything, and however they want to vote. And I think that, it's probably not a substantial enough number to toss aside these
Right.
polls, but they're so close that as well, the comment went away, but somebody I think it was Olivia, said, polls don't matter, just get out and vote.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's true.
But these are,
Brexit,
these are
anyone?
sort of our,
Right.
These are our, this is sort of our thermometer, our barometer
Exactly.
too.
Yes.
My biggest fear is that she'll win the electoral, but he'll win the popular. And
I mean,
That'll be a
that,
that
will
Yeah, that would be bad.
I mean, it happens.
Yes,
you
the
know?
chance, and that has happened 4 or 5 times in history. But
It's happened this century.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
in 2000, and I was
Yeah.
in Florida voting
Yeah.
for Gore then.
you should have voted twice.
I know, right?
You should have voted 538 times.
38 times,
Yeah.
exactly. But to that end, though, yes, those numbers have gone up, and it is likelier that we could see that, but it still would be very unlikely, and it would be more likely that there'd be a tie or neither candidate would get 270.
and that's a dangerous position to be in
Very
because
dangerous.
we know where the House is going to go.
Right.
Oh.
And
I thought Halloween was last night.
Yeah.
Don't scare me,
could be
Drex.
scary.
No, I know, and it's you can always tell the talking heads, the pundits that are on cable news. They would love a tie, and they would love, just to have
would
so
they,
much
though?
talk. Well, I think that some of them would hate it, but there's
Yes.
some that would just to have this sort of unique moment in
Yes.
history, like, yep, I get to talk about it.
And put the election into overtime.
Yeah,
and have a
exactly.
whole thing.
Brian Williams
to-
would talk
to-
very slow.
Yeah.
This is
But so
tie.
as we look at it, the fact that the polls are very close, let's take a moment and talk about realistically, can Donald Trump win this? I'll start with you, Scott.
Ooh, Bruce Lee. I like that comment. We'll come back to that later.
Well, no, it'll go away. So
There
we'll
are
get to
more
Scott in a
humans
second.
in jail for cannabis transactions alone than for all violent crimes combined in the U.S. Neither candidate is discussing.
That's true. They haven't discussed much of it, but they have said, both candidates have said we'll leave it up to the states, because we have a lot of states that are voting
Yeah.
for recreational
Including the state that
legalization.
we live in,
Yes,
yes.
in California and our next door neighbor in Arizona and Nevada.
Yeah, a lot of states are.
So all of our border states could theoretically have it as well, because
So-
Oregon already has it as well.
So yeah, to address that comment, I would say yes, that's true, and I think we have a better chance of moving progressively,
Yes.
federally with Hillary.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So-
and if these states do win, I think it is going to make the federal issue a lot more important now, because if you have California, the most populated state in the country, that legalizes it, which right now it is well
I think
ahead in the
it's
polls.
Yeah, it's over 50%.
Oh
almost
yeah, it's almost 60.
60%. Yeah.
Then I think it's going to make the federal government have to rework this and decide what they want to do, especially for banking laws
It's
and
going
other
to be
things.
like gay marriage. Once the popular
Enough states.
then Hillary, came around.
Well, and the government itself is going to have to come around as a federal issue and say we have to change the schedule of these drugs and not have it at the same level as heroin. And
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks
Yes,
for
it
that.
is not
Okay,
the
sorry.
same as heroin.
Right.
Circle back to the idea, though. So in this next week, what sort of steps can Trump take where you feel like, oh, he's going to get himself in a position where he could actually win this thing?
If he I still think he was just a little over the top with his stuff about this is the worst scandal since Watergate. But basically, if he keeps himself out of trouble and keeps a low profile, and you keep the attention back on Clinton, and you keep hammering the FBI things to throw doubts into any of these undecided voters, because that is the thing about this race, is that there are more undecided voters at this point in the race than we've had in recent elections, which makes it more volatile. Even though I still think that Hillary still has the advantage, there are a lot of people that could shift over the weekend. And states like Pennsylvania don't have early voting. States like that are very important do not have early voting. So they're all going to have to go in on November 8th and vote. So there is still time for things to change. I don't think he has it, but
I'm going
No, I
to need
know.
a lot of alcohol to get through election day.
although-
But-
Kimberly, I'm with you.
But he could tighten if he would have to do he would have to win some of these upper Midwest states that have not gone for a Republican since the late 80s. So
Yeah.
he has a very high uphill battle, because he could still win Florida, he could win North Carolina, he could win Colorado and Nevada and Iowa and Ohio and still not win.
Still not win.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he needs like a Wisconsin,
But
or he
this
needs
will be the first
a
time since
Pennsylvania.
1964 that a president has become president without Ohio. So I
Yes.
think we really
Oh, even earlier than that.
we
Yeah.
do really need to look out for Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Ohio and North Carolina, to me, and I think the Clinton campaign has said the same thing, as sort of the bellwether states to see how they do next Tuesday. Because if they're trending in certain ways, if they both go to Trump, then it may show more of a Trump movement nationwide.
Yeah.
And I was there in 2008
Yikes.
when Barack Obama, won the state of North Carolina, And state of North Carolina in the last 4 elections have been split pretty much,
Right.
2 Democrats, 2 Republicans.
Right.
In the way they voted, Roy Cooper is up in the state of North Carolina right now, and Hillary Clinton's up in the state of North Carolina right now. So that's a good. If Roy Cooper is up, that's an indication of how Hillary Clinton will perform in that state.
Right.
The only person that's not performing well in that state is Deborah Ross.
Well, it's close. One of the
close.
polls has a +1 for Burr right now.
But I don't think that. I think that Richard Burr. I think that his Hillary Clinton comment about shooting her is going to hurt him with women voters, because that's going to turn off some voters there. But I do think that they might win the governor's mansion. Hillary might win the state, but Richard Burr might keep his seat.
Well, it's the same thing in Florida too. Marco Rubio looks like he'll
he's got
keep the
a
Senate.
Right.
No.
Yeah,
no.
I think he's going to beat Patrick
Come
Murphy,
on.
and to the point
He's
where
very popular, I mean, people do like him. I
They
mean,
do,
even
to the
for
point-
a progressive to look at him and everything he does, it must be hard to believe. But I mean, he knows
You're
how to
making me
he knows how to
nauseous. I
speak
know.
to his people, and by I don't even mean that ethnically. The people who are who have drank that Kool-Aid, he's like, oh yeah, I've got them.
I mean, I was watching yesterday the Leonardo DiCaprio National Geographic Before the Flood, movie, and Leonardo DiCaprio goes to Miami where there's seawater coming up through the drains in the streets. The city's got this $400 million project that's going to buy them 40 or 50 years from completely having the land go out to sea, and Marco Rubio is still a climate denier.
Well, and Governor Rick Scott is like, you can't even use the word climate
don't
change.
even understand.
maybe that's
state
why Marco
government.
Rubio doesn't say anything.
Yeah,
he doesn't
it's-
want to go back to his
It
own.
might be, but
He's
you know,
not even not say anything. He's a denier.
So to speak there in Florida, I'm sure that Leonardo rode his bicycle, right? He didn't fly a private plane.
well,
Did he fly commercial?
actually, it was interesting. He was talking to somebody in India, and he was trying to make this case for, well, with the United States, we can keep doing what we've been doing. Just let's change the energy source. And the woman in India was like, no, honey, you got to look at how much energy the United States is using, and we have to cut down on consumption. So he was a little like, oh, what? I'm going to have to change? So I think that actually doing the movie was probably good for him, because he even acknowledged that he probably uses more energy than the average American. So that's probably
Probably.
And a bigger
when-
footprint of
Probably.
carbon when you're traveling via.
We do only have a few
jet.
more minutes, so I just want to sort of move through this idea of things that Trump can do. Like I alluded to earlier in the show, he did have a very focused speech in Pennsylvania today, and you can tell because the headline said that it was focused, and that's how you notice. That stands out. It's like, oh, you know what? He didn't meander. He didn't talk about all the things.
You
he
mean
didn't-
you're talking about his healthcare speech?
Well, yeah, but no, he didn't talk about the sort of the trigger things, which
Right.
are that I'm not going to abide by the results of
Right.
the election, that it's rigged. He didn't talk about the things that he had been talking about. And we actually don't have time to go into his thoughts on Obamacare because we only have a few minutes. But that's the
What
sort of thing.
thoughts besides
I know,
yours?
right?
I
Get
love
rid
how
of-
he was like,
replace it with
"We
something,
we need to convene
fantastic.
a special session. Like, isn't
Yeah.
their job to show up at all and to deal with this? Why does it got to be a
Right,
special
special
session?
session.
Well, because they don't do anything during the regular session.
Right.
Because
But
we have
because
too many
nobody-
Republicans.
Right.
what he basically needs is to sort of toe that line and not be Trump, basically, and he needs to sort of stick to the message that has been laid out for him, not the message that's in his head. But what he doesn't need is getting an endorsement from the Crusader. You don't know what the Crusader is? Oh, that's the Ku Klux Klan's official newspaper, and that happened today. So you always have to watch for that sort of thing, and I'm fascinated as to what we're going to see in the next 6-7 days as to what that is. And
Probably
there was
won't hear about it.
There was a very interesting question in the chat room that Drexel made sure I saw, and I do want to take the time to get everybody's answers on that, and then we'll talk about it next week. I'll start with you, Drexel, since you saw it. Will you support a Trump presidency? And that doesn't even have to mean excitedly support this might mean how she meant it, the idea of, oh, I'm going to be in line with the agenda. But I guess I'll ask this more of in a, are you in the, well, I'm going to have to move to Canada? Because personally, I'm not moving to Canada. I love Canada. I have some Canadian friends. I'm not moving there. I don't care who the president is. I'm not going to leave America and live in any other country, even the United States of Trump America. I will stay. I got nowhere else I want to be, all right? America is great. I don't need to go anywhere else. Would I be excited about a President Trump? I wouldn't be excited if the guy that we've seen in the debates is president. No, I think that, you never know. A guy could surprise you, but I feel like we've gotten the wrong kind of surprises from him thus far. But to Olivia's point, Drexel, your thoughts?
I'm a student of democracy, so I believe in the process. So you gotta respect the process. I think that what we would see in a Trump presidency are policies that are destructive enough to bring out Democrats during midterms that they don't normally turn out to, and I think that will completely flip the legislative branch if that happens. You do the process, and that's what the outcome is going to be. I don't think we can say anything else after that. I think the Democrats tend to be a little bit more, okay, that's it. We gotta go. We gotta move on. This is the process. Democrats don't seem to be a little bit louder, but yes, I do expect President Trump to be impeached
within
6 months.
Yeah, but
look, there are people who say the same thing about
But
Hillary.
then we got Pence, and I'm
Right.
not excited
But
about
I don't.
that
But
either.
here's the thing. Here's the
Let
thing.
Drexel
Here's
finish
the
his
thing I
point
say
there.
about Republicans, though. If Trump became president, Republicans in leadership, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, Mike Pence, who's been in the Congress, would run circles around Donald Trump legislatively to ensure that he doesn't screw anything up. They'd say, nope, can't do that. No, can't do that. Generals would say, no, you can't do that. He might fire everybody, but who is he going to replace them with? Every general is trained.
Omarosa.
But every general, most military professionals are trained to, say, okay, great, we're going to listen to the president. But if there's an order that they just cannot do,
This is actually a good question.
Let me explain to you why
this
we
is
can't
why
do
we
this.
cannot do
Yeah.
that. And
Mr.
he would have to
President.
fire
Yeah.
every military professional
You don't
down
think
the
he
line.
could find one
General Flynn.
crazy nuthead?
General Flynn, who he's got running around the whole state, all around the country with him.
What
But
do you think of the sound of General Rudy Giuliani?
Rudy, you're right. But I think that Republicans would reel him in as a president in that checks and balances kind of way. I think it would be bad for the
I
Supreme
hope so.
Court.
I hope you're right there. I just
Right,
feel
but
like he's so bombastic he would
he
say
would,
stuff
he
out
would,
to
he
public.
would go
and-
around the public, but I think that as president, he would be up against. You know how when some Democrats go up against President Obama in terms of policy, I think we would absolutely see that in Republicans who want to run in 2020.
Yeah, and I think that your Ted Cruz's, your Rand Paul's, people who already ran against Donald Trump, I think would be pretty much right out there in the front on that sort of thing. And again, we only have a few minutes, so I want to give each of you a chance to respond to Olivia's question. Great question, Olivia.
It is.
Chelsea.
Oh man, it's great and it's really tough. God, there's so many. There's like the composed part of me that wants to say something along what
Like
Drexel
what Drexel
said.
said.
Right.
You know, I
like,
support democracy.
yes, of course.
And
But then there's a part of you that
Yes.
wants to get
Like-
arrested
Yeah,
and
that
burn the
took me
place down.
well,
that took me a lot to
arrested
say.
again.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just. First of all, half of the things that he talks about can't get done, but I think he might get fixated on them, and then we cannot move forward in some very important things like climate change.
Well, that's not going to happen.
I mean,
No.
and people watch this before the flood movie. If you can appreciate and respect science, that is, and I mean,
And facts.
we don't have 4 years to just
Right.
twiddle our thumbs and do nothing. And the price of healthcare and.
Sure.
Repealing Obamacare with what? And nothing, just that we get to buy insurance across states. Can't we just do that now with Obamacare? I mean, there's a lot of things that are not going to get done, and we're going to move backwards. Oh dear God, the Supreme Court.
Right.
That's probably the most frightening part.
Well, to all those frightening parts that
Yes.
Chelsea raised, Scott, your thoughts on if there is a President Trump, how do you look at it? Are you gonna run for a Canada or a warmer other country?
I agree with you, Christians, that I would stay here. I'd want to be able to fix whatever these problems would be.
Yeah.
But I like Drexel said, it would be the will of the people. I would be incredibly disappointed and saddened that a majority of my fellow Americans would vote for someone like this, and
would
it would
be
make
in
me feel
shock.
sick.
Yeah.
And I also think they would be very disappointed because, like you were saying, Chelsea, he is not going to be able to do any of these things that he delivers because he gives very generalistic comments. He has no real concrete plans, and things are not going to happen. And I think those supporters are going to be sadly disappointed by the lack of things that actually happen.
Because I think that
because
they
he's not going to make it happen.
They don't realize that Trump can't be a dictator. He can't.
Right.
I mean, it's just not going to work out the way that he thinks.
This 4% growth that he's promising and bringing back these jobs that he's promising, and the big wall that Mexico's. None of those things are going to happen, and that's the thing that if people are buying into this are going to be very disappointed.
People don't understand the way
it's not
the
gonna
markets
happen.
work, the way the Constitution works, the 3 branches of government. We need
He
collectively.
doesn't even understand that. That's the thing. He
No,
doesn't understand
we
any
need,
of that. That's
we,
why
we need, maybe this show, after the election should be like an entertaining civics class, because I don't think that most Americans really understand how the F it all works.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I was just looking at Lawrence O'Donnell did the whole story about the 28% of Republicans.
Yes.
And I think when people start to look at, people ask me all the
Florida.
time, how comfortable you are with Hillary Clinton winning next week? And I said, I'm fairly comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's an election. Like, I shouldn't feel comfortable.
Right.
Barack Obama, Mitt Romney was comfortable.
He was very comfortable.
He was
that
too.
day.
Yes,
He was a little too
exactly too
comfortable.
comfortable.
John Kerry was very comfortable.
yes,
So were a
in
lot of
2000.
other people.
I think it goes back to what Robbie Mook said at the beginning of this campaign. He doesn't want to just win. He wants to win very big.
Right.
So I think we saw today where the Hillary Clinton campaign is starting to rebuy their ads in states they normally should not need to.
And states that they hadn't bought
states that they
in
hadn't bought
months,
any
yeah.
anymore. And where some people were like, I saw watching the punditry today where they were like, oh, well, it could be that they are just getting scared. Actually, it's a part of Robbie Mook's plan from the beginning where he doesn't care about just winning by 2 or 3 points. He's talking about winning big, and I think you see that in the 28%. I think you see that in the 28% where people are like, oh, well, Republicans are getting out, Republicans are enthusiastic about voting, blah, 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 blah. But if you're seeing 28% of Republican voters in Florida voting for Hillary Clinton, how does that is going to travel across there is more of a chance of a Republican voting for Hillary Clinton than there is a Democrat
voting for Trump.
voting for Donald
Absolutely.
Trump.
Oh, that's 100% sure. And
to the point that Olivia made earlier in the chat, which was that the polls don't mean anything, get out and vote. It'll be fascinating once we actually have the results to see these breakdowns. Well, how many Republicans in Florida did vote for Hillary? And maybe it's 56%. Who knows? What were you going to say,
Well,
Scott?
I was going to say, I actually, and to Drexel's point, I think it's actually good that we see these polls getting closer, because it will encourage Democrats that might have thought, oh, we've got this in the bag and aren't going to feel as motivated to vote. It's actually going to keep these Democrats motivated to get out and vote and make sure that we don't allow...
Which your statement right there reinforces the conspiracy theory that the polls are rigged, so that they're like, all right, we're going to tighten them up.
Well, of course, people could, yes,
put it
of
out
course.
there.
But they really have and that has been a legitimate thing. But I think it's important, and it will help the Democrats that were overconfident, and it will be fascinating to see how it all pans out. But I will have one other interesting thing to say about the polls. Moody Analytics actually had a thing that came out today, and they have guesstimated who the president's going to be since 1980, and they've guesstimated it correctly, and they have Hillary Clinton winning. Basically with the same Electoral College vote that Obama won in 2012, 332 to 206, and winning Florida, winning North Carolina. And
there was always that stat that whichever Halloween costume sold better was right. I think it was actually wrong a few years ago.
It was.
But I feel like this year with Trump, like, who wants to be Hillary? Everybody's
Everyone's
like,
gonna
no,
be
I'm going to
Trump.
be a zombie Trump.
Yeah,
I'm going to be
exactly.
a monster Trump.
Right.
I
Nobody
think
just wants to be Trump. Although Keith, my friend in the chat room, he actually sent me we work together, and he sent me a photo of his dog last night, dressed as Donald Trump. So I thought that was very funny. But I just wanted to mention real quick about the black voter issue in Florida, and I think this has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton, everything to do with Barack Obama, and not in terms of Barack Obama as a black president,
right?
But Barack Obama, as we have gone through 5 years of shootings across the country, and there's been no resolution on it, and so I think black millennials are starting to be like, well, we don't even care.
And I think in Ohio too, that's another a very big thing in Ohio, and that's why we might see the numbers.
And I think it's hurting. I think
I
think the White House has hurt Hillary Clinton not only on black voters, but then this Obamacare thing that came out last week. Like, they have set her up for problems later on, and I think that's been a problem.
So to synthesize the point that Scott made about how the polls have gotten so much closer with an idea that I shared with you last week, which is the idea the idea of impossible, the idea that it's impossible that Donald Trump could be president. I will point out that the Chicago Cubs are still in the World Series, and they are forcing a Game 7 tomorrow night.
Did they win?
It's 7-2. It's against Cleveland. Another case of Ohio letting people down. Here it is, Tuesday night. We will be back a week from tonight. But we've got a big night in store for you over here on the AfterBuzz TV networks, plural, because Drexel's show, Political Culture, will start at 6 o'clock normal time, and then we'll sort of join that panel. We'll hang out for a little while, be a little crosstalk that they call it in the industry, and then we'll be around. Trump versus Hillary will all be around until at least 9 p.m. So you've got about 3, maybe more hours of us. So make sure you tune in to Political Culture on BHL at 6, and we'll be around right after that.
And we've got a big board coming, so Scott can talk. Scott can fill in.
That's
I'm
my
having them make a
favorite
big board. We can fill it all in.
Can you imagine? What if it was Alaska? We have to stay up really late, and Alaska's the
Oh
one
my
that.
God.
Why would you say that? You just jinxed us. Anyway, for Sky Moore, Chelsea Galicia, Drexel Heard, I'm Christian Bladt. We will see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Like we'll come out and grab random people.
I thought about that too.
Were we talking about that?
Yeah.
Email?
I thought about that. That'd be great.
If there are anybody here, because I know